Hello, horse racing fans, and Happy New Year! Hope 2024 was a good year for all of you. For me, it was an improvement over where I was when I sat here making last year's video. 2024 brought us some absolutely amazing horse races. So many that it was hard to whittle it down to just 10, but I did succeed. Just like with my other end-of-year racing lists, this list is entirely my opinion and is not an objective fact whatsoever. If you have a race that you liked more than I did, that is great, and I'd love to hear it in the comments. For my list, only one race per horse will be allowed. With that out of the way, here are some quick honorable mentions before we go to the main list. The Travers Stakes. This race in terms of hype and excitement is rivaled by few, and it was amazing to see Ken McPeak share Torpedo Anna with us, and push her into territory others wouldn't, and turn her into a fan favorite. What holds this one back for me is that this race gives me flashbacks to Zenyatta's last race, the 2010 Breeders' Cup Classic, because every time I watch it, I'm praying she makes it, and she never does. A truly amazing performance she gave, no doubt, but this one hurts a bit to watch.
Fierceness! Torpedo Anna in an absolutely dramatic conclusion! The champ is back! Fierceness!
The Belmont Gold Cup. While it was not held at Belmont, seeing a 2-mile horse race in America was something you don't see every day. Getting Melbourne Cup announcer Matt Hill to call the race was another great addition to make it feel special. As for the race itself, it had a good setup and a thrilling conclusion, with one of my personal favorite trainers, Graham Motion, having his horse get his head down on the wire. It also helped that I watched the race with my parents, who were just as excited as I was. It was a good time. Now, let's get to the main list. The Preakness Stakes. After the disappointment that was last year's Triple Crown, this was a breath of fresh air. Seeing Dean Wayne Lucas still manage to win Triple Crown races after being seen as over the hill was awesome. It was also a bittersweet victory for Cease the Grace to see sire Arrogate. And for the third element, having all those My Racehorse people celebrating in the winner's circle was nice, especially since I have friends who work for My Racehorse, so I got to see the pure joy in their faces when we talked about the race after the fact. Well, it meant the end of the Triple Crown dream for Mystik Dan. A very likable crew of people won instead, leading to a pretty fun iteration of this year's Preakness.
Wayne Lucas has done it! Sees the gray, wins the Preakness!
The Melbourne Cup. This was a perfect continuation of what I had started last year. Just like with the 2023 running of the race, I went to my campus's Italian restaurant, ordered some fettuccine alfredo, and watched some horse racing. As for the race itself, it was as exciting as the year before. While I personally was rooting for the Japanese invader Warp Speed and Hoosier-bred One Smooth Operator, having a 90-1 shot in Knight's Choice take the prize in a blanket photo finish was still a thrilling result. And it was cool to learn that the jockey was once a contestant on The Voice. It's just so magical to see 23 horses thunder down 2 miles of racetrack, and it come down to the last stride. Longer races just feel more epic in proportion.
Choice and Warp Speed coming at it. Knight's Choice, Warp Speed, they hit the line. It's a photo finish.
The British Long Distance Cup. Yep, I'm continuing the theme. Who doesn't love a good comeback story? Kyprios was one of the most exciting prospects in 2023 after a perfect 2022 campaign, so it was very bitterly disappointing at the time that he was forced to miss most of 2023 due to an injury, and then when he returned being a step below what he was before. But what I didn't know was just how incredible it was that he was racing at all. He had an infected fetlock that at one point was a life-threatening injury. The rehabilitation process was slow, but an amazing effort by everyone involved to get him stable and let alone back to grade 1 racing condition. I could have picked any of his wins this year, as he was as perfect as he was in 2022, but I chose the Long Distance Cup because it was his last win and a sigh of relief for me. It wasn't the longest race he ran, or the one with the highest stakes, but it was his curtain call for the year, so it had an extra sweet feeling as he jogged away to another win. One last win, looking back on all the other perfect races he had done in 2024. Just a remarkable horse, with some of my favorite qualities of horse racing stories all wrapped into one equine.
Up towards the line, and Kyprios, the king of the stayers!
The Queen Elizabeth Stakes. Just wow. I could end it right there, but I'll try to keep going. Not just this year, but in most years, is it rare to see a horse pull a move this extreme. It leaves you at a loss for words to see a horse open up 30 lengths at one point and simply win by being so far ahead that they are unable to be caught. What's even cooler to me is that this strategy wasn't a human's bright idea, it was instead the horse's. In post-race interviews, Pride of Jenni's rider, Declan Bates, describes how in previous races he was able to get her to settle back just enough, but on this particular day, she decided to take full control and run the race how she saw fit, which was opening up 30 lengths on the backstretch. She just really felt like running, and it worked brilliantly. Just a pure racehorse. This is a race I'm confident will be remembered forever.
Jenni and the Queen Elizabeth Stakes. My oh my, the Sistina Six.
The Hong Kong Champions and Chatter Cup. Rebel's Romance is one of the coolest racehorses of the 2020s. Before even mentioning his accomplishments, physically he's just so impressive, with a tall long body and a nearly black coat. If he weren't a gelding, he'd be a dead ringer to be the thoroughbred equivalent of the Black Stallion. He only gets cooler when you factor in his incredible racing career that has seen him win graded stakes races on dirt and turf all over the world. While I did get to see him win the Breeders' Cup Turf, my choice is instead the Chatter Cup because of what it meant. This win was in his 6th country. No horse has won in that many countries in modern history. Add on to that it was his 4th straight win in a different country, and you get a true globetrotter. Actually, as of his win in the Breeders' Cup Turf, all 5 of his victories in 2024 were in different countries on 3 continents. Just an unmatched traveler, and adding a 6th country in the special administrative region of Hong Kong and China was truly special, and something you're not going to see very often.
Rebel's Romance, the 1.4 favourites. There's his 5th Group 1 victory.
The King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Stakes. In terms of sheer quality, this was one of the most loaded horse races this year. The ARC winner, Blue Stocking, Rebel's Romance, 6-time Group 1 winner August Rodin, Luxembourg, who won Group 1s in 4 seasons of racing, and that doesn't even include the long shots. And then the race instead was the introduction to a new champion in Goliath, who defeated all of them. I'm excited to see if Goliath can keep up his success in 2025, because the King George was a thrilling introduction to this horse. It just oozed with drama. While some performances from the big guys were a little underwhelming, it was still an awesome race.
A very ready winner of the King George. Goliath wins for France.
The Cox Plate. It was a tall order to try and equal last year's Cox Plate's thrilling photo finish, but the 2024 renewal did a fantastic job. Of course, the scare leading up to the race put everyone on their toes, as Via Sistina's wraps came loose, causing her to stumble and throw off jockey James McDonald. Miraculously, neither were hurt, and only a few days later, it was time for them to run in one of the biggest races in Australia. It wasn't just the fact she won after the scare, but how she did it. She ran past her rivals like they were walking, and won so easily that James McDonald had a whole 50 yards to celebrate, as this was his 100th Group 1 victory. What a way to do it. And if all of that wasn't enough, she smashed the track record set by the immortal Winx. It had a bit of everything, and made for one fantastic race.
A century of the very best. Via Sistina by 7 lengths.
The Kentucky Derby. Derby 150. A truly monumental number for such an occasion. I was both excited and worried if the Derby would live up to the hype. The Derby had a diverse field, but what sealed the deal was the finish, even though my horse was on the wrong end of it. Forever Young was the horse I wanted to win, so to see him lose by so little was a bit of a hit, but it was still an incredible showing nonetheless, and I eagerly await his return as a 4-year-old. Even without the horse I wanted to win, winning the race, it brought me out of my seat screaming in the Italian restaurant I watched it at. 3 horses across the line, only noses apart. Now that is something special, only seen one other time in Derby history. It was such a thrilling finish, even my parents and relatives went out of their way to say that was a great Kentucky Derby. That was an extra stamp of approval that I needed to know, that I wasn't just seeing things. This was a Derby running worthy of the title of the 150th renewal of the greatest 2 minutes in sports. And as a small bonus, in October I did get the opportunity to see the Derby winner Mystik in his stable. The first time I've seen an active Kentucky Derby winner since California Chrome in 2016.
Finish, here's the wire, photo finish, 3 noses on the wire.
The Yasuda Kinen. Just like with last year, picking only one Romantic Warrior race is a difficult task, but it must be done. Romantic Warrior had already received my full attention with hard-fought wins in the Cox Plate and Hong Kong Cup, and it just continued. While I could have very easily picked his historic third Hong Kong Cup victory for the fact it has never occurred before in history, and the incredible aura oozing from James McDonald looking back at the sorely beaten foes, I had to go with the Yasuda Kinen because that race made my heart race in a different way. The Hong Kong Cup was a serene procession, but the Yasuda Kinen had me sweating bullets because there was so much to prove. A third country for him to conquer, Japan, and a slightly shorter distance than he preferred, a mile. The way he emerged between horses was breathtaking, but there was no levity until the wire for me, as Nomura and Soul Rush charged on the outside. But he just never quit, always having more to give, as he outfought his opponents. His fighting qualities are what endear me the most about him. He takes on all comers, and in a head-to-head battle, he always just has one more gear than the horse next to him. It never gets old. I can't wait to see what he does in the Middle East this year.
Oh, he's a star. Romantic Warrior takes out another Group 1. Nomura second.
The Saudi Cup. Being on the West Coast can be great for catching Japanese and Hong Kong races at a semi-decent hour in the evening, but it also comes with a super early wake-up time for Middle East races. I had been up since 5 a.m. catching awesome Saudi races, but finally came the most important one. The richest race in the world, the Saudi Cup. I had 2 horses I liked. Ushba Tesoro, the Dubai World Cup winner, who endeared me through his personality and experience. The other was Senor Buscador, a horse I had seen race twice in California, and initially thought was nothing special, but my view on him changed after the Pegasus World Cup. There I learned his backstory, being the last horse bred by Joey Peacock Sr., a true, honest, and local horseman from New Mexico, before he passed away. A humble horse who had traveled all over the US and now was going to take on the world. He had outrun his odds in the Pegasus World Cup, but had just come up short, to my chagrin. Now it was time for round 2. What made it really come together was how fast the finish transpired. In the blink of an eye, after thinking Saudi Crown was going to wire the field, I see Ushba take over the lead, and then out of the corner of my eye, the navy blue silks of Senor Buscador just flash across and nail Ushba at the wire. The lead changes from 3 different horses in the span of just a couple seconds. It went by almost faster than my brain could process, and it left me short-circuited in pure thrill. It was like picking a favorite child when they hit the finish line. But Ushba had already gotten his moment in the World Cup. Senor Buscador was the squeaky wheel who got the grease, and it couldn't have unfolded in a more exciting way. Nothing beats a good come-from-behind horse and a tight finish. He may not always win, but on that day, Senor Buscador was perfect, making for without a doubt my favorite Saudi Cup iteration and my favorite race of 2024. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment down what your favorite races of 2024 were and what you're looking forward to in 2025. And if you have something you'd like to see from this channel this year, also don't be afraid to suggest it in the comment section below. See you guys next time. Let's have a great year.